Hello and welcome back to episode 19 of the Middle Ground podcast. I nearly just forgot the name of my own fucking podcast. Christ. This is episode 7 of Fat Loss Foundations today, where we are going through the most essential aspects and things that you need to know about to achieve successful fat loss, long-term behavior and habit change. And in this episode, we're covering consistency. More importantly, consistency over perfection and showing up consistently good rather than occasionally perfect. Because what's the old homage or the old saying as it goes is done is better than perfect. You need to get things done. Done and not perfect is better than not done and perfect, right? So, this is a bit of a mindset episode. And first of all, we're going to dive in to one of the most important topics, which is an all or nothing mindset, which I know a lot of you are stuck in. I know a lot of you struggle with. It's not an easy thing to deal with. I've dealt with it to some degree in some aspects of my life. I still do struggle with it. The most important reframe for this is that it's not an on-off switch. Your habits, your lifestyle, your routine is not an on-off switch. That's not how this works. If you think of it as a light, right? So your progress is a light. It is not a flick off or a flick on. It's not you're either making progress to your goal 100% of the time absolutely perfectly, or you're not making any progress at all. And if you think of it like that, then it will be that. As soon as something goes slightly wrong, you press the off switch, you fuck it all up, and you don't make any progress. Now, what I need you to reframe this as in your own head, and the way that we think about things is very important because it shapes how we act in the real world. I need you to think of this as a dimmer switch. So we dial it up, we dial it down. It's never on or off. You might have a perfect week. You're making amazing progress. That light is fully on. You're full blast, right? Then something might pop up. That doesn't mean we turn the light off. That doesn't mean we just click off and crack on, right? What we do, we dim the light down a little bit to a more sustainable level. Rather than getting 10,000 steps in that entire week, maybe we only aim for 8. Rather than being in a 500 calorie deficit that week, maybe we're only in a 250 calorie deficit each day, right? These things are not on or off activities. Habits are not on or off. You can dial them up and down to make sure that you're still making progress, maybe just a little bit slower. But isn't slightly slower progress better than no progress or maybe even reversing progress? Because in your head, it's off. You're not doing anything. Think of it as a dimmer switch. Get rid of that all or nothing mentality because your routine is meant to serve you. Your habits are meant to serve you. They're not meant to detract from your life. They're meant to add to it. So if it's something that you have to feel is on or off, maybe it's not serving you in the way that you think it is. Maybe you should rethink what the habit is because it should be adding to your life. It shouldn't be detrimental. You should be able to dial your routine around your life. Super important. Your life shouldn't have to bend to your progress, your goals, your routine, your habits. Your habits should do that around your life. And they should be flexible, they should be malleable to allow you to keep making progress because life isn't always easy. Life isn't always perfect. A perfect week comes around very rarely. Where you've got nothing comes up. You have no problems. You have no issues. You've got all the time in the world. That doesn't happen. So you need to be able to flex, bend your habits and your progress around life. Because then you'll make more sustainable progress over time. The next thing I want to dive into is why people quit. And it links very nicely into this last point. Because people quit because they think of it as on or off. And they overwhelm themselves. Especially at the start. If you are starting this journey to achieve a better physique, to be more confident, to be more outgoing, to be more sociable, to feel better in yourself and in your life, more comfortable in your own skin, there are a lot of things that you can do. And a lot of people make the mistake at the start of doing everything. They go from not caring to training, to tracking their food, to getting their steps in, to getting their sleep, to focusing on their hydration, to all of these elements that, yeah, at some point, we will have all those things in. I have all those things consistently in my life. But you can't just introduce them all at once. Because it's going to overwhelm you, it's going to burn you out, it's going to fuck you up. And if you do introduce them at once, the only way to maybe get that to work is at a very low level and then ramp them up together. But wouldn't you rather focus on one thing? So for the first week, all you're focused on is your nutrition. All you're focused on is tracking your food, hitting your calories, hitting your protein. Then after 1 or 2 weeks, you're feeling better, you're more motivated, you have seen a little bit of progress, then you introduce training. Then you go, okay, I'm going to go to the gym once this week or twice this week. And you do that for a couple of weeks. Then you go, let's go 3 times. Let's ramp up this program. And then maybe eventually you go 4 times a week. You're tracking your calories and you're getting your steps in. You build it up. But don't overwhelm yourself with these super high expectations. And as soon as you don't smash it all out the fucking park, you just give up. Because that's not real life. You can't put these expectations on yourself that are so high after years of not doing anything. This progress isn't going to come overnight. So take the time to develop these habits properly, and let them feed into your life rather than completely overwhelm you and fuck you up. And if you go into this with the all or nothing mindset, you're going to think that if it's not perfect, then it's not even worth trying, which we know isn't true. There's a thing called the power of averages, which essentially outlines that it doesn't matter what you do some of the time, it's what you do most of the time. You are simply an average of your decisions, positive and negative, by science, right? This isn't a theoretical thing. This is, by definition, you are an average of all the things you do, all the decisions you make. And you can't trick that. You can't outchase that. You can't outrun that. It's what you do most of the time that matters for your long-term progress. So that one weekend that you go out and you probably eat a little bit over your calories and maybe you drink a little bit more than you planned to, and you have a little bit of an off-track weekend. If that happens once every 6 months, not a problem. Crack on, enjoy yourself, doesn't matter. If that's happening every week, then we've got a problem. Every single decision you make is a vote for the person you want to become. Think about that. One of my favorite quotes of all time. Every single decision you make is a vote towards the person you want to become. And all those decisions add up to become the average. You can't make 10 positive, healthy decisions and expect to be a different person. But if you make 1 million positive, healthy decisions and 10,000 not so healthy, maybe slightly negative or, anti-progress, I suppose, decisions, it doesn't matter because you're the average. So you average out those two. You need the positive to outweigh the negative and you'll start to trend in the right direction, but you can't expect that to happen overnight. If you spent the last 10 years making almost entirely detrimental decisions, you can't then expect after a month of positive decisions for that all to be erased because you're still playing with the averages. You're still trying to average out, still trying to get there. One of the most important factors of this long-term progress is learning how to handle bad days. Where you normally would, if you were in the all or nothing mindset, press the off switch. Or as I like to call it, the fuck it button. You slam the big red fuck it button and you go, this day doesn't matter, this week doesn't matter, maybe this month doesn't matter. And you make 0 positive decisions. The biggest piece of advice for bad days is to make the next decision a positive one. I don't care what it is. It might be reaching for a glass of water. It might be making your dinner high protein, nutritious. It might be going out for a walk. Whatever it is to stop that cycle and that spiral of that downtrend, do it. Make that next decision a positive one. And I know this can be super hard when you're in the fog of war and you're in this like fight or flight mindset. It's really hard to logically think about your long-term goals and to make the decisions that you want to make in a logical mind because you're acting emotionally. You're not acting rationally. So once you regain that control, and the quicker you can close that gap between the event and regaining some sense of self-control, the quicker you can make that positive decision and the quicker you can stop making detrimental choices and putting things off. And then the less impact that has on your long-term progress and the quicker you get back to making the progress that you want to be making. So if we can close that gap and the next decision you make is a positive one, awesome. To put it slightly more simply, fucking crack on. You've got a plan, execute, crack on. This isn't to say you can't be upset or to be emotional or to take care of yourself, but you have to realize that if you want something, you might have to do the things that you don't feel like doing sometimes. And that is making the next positive decision when maybe you're not in a great headspace. Maybe all you want to do is sit on the sofa and self-soothe and eat ice cream, whatever it might be. But what you really want to do is go for a fucking walk. Like, you don't want to do it, but you tomorrow will be so happy that you did. So if you can outsource that motivation to you tomorrow and make the next decision a positive one, please do it, because it will make that long-term progress much, much more sustainable. Finally, the weekend. The big weekend. The downfall of most people, the fear. It strikes fear into people's hearts when they're making good progress is the weekend. So let me talk to you about how you're going to manage it. There are multiple ways. There are many a way. I'm going to have a quick little drink first and then we'll dive in. Okay. So what normally happens on the weekend for people? They lack the routine, they lack the structure that they had in the week that helped them do so well, that helped them stay on track. Routine, habits, structure, such a massive part of long-term progress because it makes things happen on autopilot. As soon as you hit the weekend, you lose that. You lose your wake-up time. You lose the structure of going to work. You lose, essentially, the ability to only eat at certain times of days. You can't just crack a meal out whenever the fuck you want. You can't just go to the fridge when you're at work, right? You can't just, it's not like that. You have set structure. So that lack of structure, that lack of routine, and the increased temptation of, you've probably gone out somewhere, you're doing things you don't normally do, so nutrition's harder to stick to. You might not be training, you might not be getting your steps in. It's hard. It's hard. But to manage it, number one, anchoring habits, massive. These are small habits and small routines that you can add into your weekend that you probably already do on your weekday that signal to you that this day is no different. So for me, it's getting up, going for a walk, or going and training, and having a high-protein, nutritious breakfast. Those are my anchoring habits for the weekend. They don't take a lot of time. My walk might be 20 minutes, and I come back, and I have my breakfast whenever I want my breakfast, and I make sure that it's a high-protein, nutritious meal. Those are enough for me to signal to myself that this is a positive day, one that is focused on progress, even if I'm still going to go have fun. It sets my foundations, it sets my solid bases that I can then build on for the day. Whereas if I woke up and didn't do anything, didn't get any sunlight, didn't get any movement, and had a breakfast that might not be as nutritious or might be super high calorie or just something that doesn't align with my current goals, how can I expect the rest of the day to be successful? What you need to do is anchor yourself and ground yourself to some sort of routine, some sort of structure, and some sort of foundation of progress. It doesn't have to take very long. It can be something 20 minutes. It might just be stretching. But it's signaling to yourself that you're in a routine, even if things are a little bit different. Okay? Another really useful thing I use sometimes when I'm in a deficit and struggling is I bring my calories back up to maintenance for the weekend, because it frees up a lot of mental space and a lot of, calories, to put it simply. You can go out for that brunch and not have to stress about it as much. You can go out for that dinner. You can not fight through the entire weekend hungry. It allows you to make more level-headed decisions because you're not really hungry. Where you've got the lack of routine, it might be harder to stay in a deficit. So instead, you just give yourself a bit more freedom. You give yourself 500 extra calories to play with. And sometimes you go under. Sometimes you're still in a deficit, but just that mental space of I'm gonna be at maintenance today. Sometimes you might be under, sometimes you might be a little bit over, but as long as it doesn't go crazy, you won't affect your long-term progress. It will slow down rather than if you're in a deficit 7 days a week, but not by loads. Massive one here is to focus on keeping the habits that matter to you in the routine. So similar to anchoring habits, you are keeping your important things, so steps and protein. Those would be my biggest two examples. Steps, calories, protein. If you can hit those on the weekend, do whatever the fuck you want. Most of the time for people, they get more steps on the weekend. They're out and about. They're doing things with their family. They're going on walks. They're going and doing activities, whatever it is. If you can hit your steps, positive. If you can hit your protein, even better. If you can hit your calories, sick. You won't have any problem maintaining that progress. And it probably won't take up a lot of time. I think a lot of people use the weekend as an excuse to eat whatever the fuck they want, even if it's just they're at home and they're cooking a meal and they just, rather than bother cooking when they've got the time and they've got the resources and they've got the energy, rather than on a weeknight, they just order something or they put something in the fucking air fryer and it does my head in. Not that the air fryer is bad, obviously. You can cook great stuff in the air fryer, but you know what I'm talking about. Chuck it in chicken nuggets and shit. But keep the things in your routine that benefit you and that make you feel good about yourself and that push you forward. Lastly, it is way harder to get back to it on Monday, air quotes, rather than being in a consistent routine over the weekend, even if it's a little bit less than you do in the week. It's much harder to go and start from a negative position on a Monday morning than keeping some semblance of routine over the weekend and starting properly on, just getting back to normal on Monday. Pushing a little bit harder. That slight routine, getting your steps in, hitting your protein, hitting your calories, is much easier than restarting everything on Monday. I can promise you that. So if you can keep some semblance of a routine over the weekend, and you can hit your steps, hit your protein, hit your calories, maybe get that session in if it's one you have to do over the weekend, it will make you feel so much better. And you'll still have loads of time. Because those are the things you do on a weekday when you've got 8 hours of work minimum to do, right? So you can definitely do those things on a weekend and still have loads of time to enjoy the rest of your weekend. So please don't just write weekends off because it's not perfect and you don't have that solid routine. You can still make great progress, or just go to maintenance and then start the week consistent, okay? So what I want you to do, your action step for this week in this episode, is to define your minimum viable day. So when everything goes tits up, what is a day that you would be happy with? It might be just getting your steps in and hitting your protein. That might be it. Those might be your base habits that you will need to hit to feel good about the day and be happy with it on a tits up day. It might be more than that, it might be less than that, but if you can define your minimum viable day, one that you would genuinely be happy with and not trick yourself into being happy with, one that you would genuinely finish and go, you know what, wasn't perfect, but I did my best and I did what I could do and it hasn't affected my progress too much, do it. Define that day, write it somewhere, and you will show up for yourself, because you'll have a day that is shit is hitting the fan, and you go, okay, all I need to do today is hit my steps and get my protein in. And it takes the pressure off doing everything perfectly, because you go, if I get to the end of this day and this is all I've done, I'm still going to be happy. That is all for this week. I hope that's given you a bit of an insight into consistency over perfection and why it is more important for long-term progress. I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes again, and it is that consistently good is better than occasionally perfect, which is so true. Follow me on Instagram, @JudeVenCoaching. Like, subscribe, comment, share, rate the podcast on Spotify. It means the world to me. Thank you for giving me your time. I hope this was helpful, and I will speak to you all in the next episode.